Hello everybody, my name is Achim Ammann from Black Label Properties. Today we have the 22nd Meet the Expert Berlin Real Estate Talks. Today the topic is renting in Berlin. What's happening here in Berlin these days? The rent ceiling is over. We have now May 2021. Our two experts tonight are Mr. Thomas Adam. Hello Thomas. Thomas, he's working in our letting management department and he is on the day-to-day business with tenants and doing the rental contracts and making sure everything is done properly. And our director of the letting management company, Mr. Yiannis Tzakris. Hello.
Hi.
And he's of course giving you all the answers to your questions on rent ceiling, on rent covers, and all the different topics here in Germany, which might be a bit strange for you as an international person or investor. How does it work? And thank you for watching tonight. Yiannis, how long you've now working at Black Label Properties?
It's almost 4 years now. I've been the CEO since last November, more or less. And yeah, I've seen quite a lot of things during this time.
Yeah.
And yeah, how the market was changed all these years, whatever happened with all the new laws and whatever we had to deal with the past year.
Yeah.
With the Mietendeckel.
It was a very busy year for all of us. Huh?
It was quite busy, and to be honest, we didn't expect to have a decision for the law so early. I mean, it was expected at some point by the end of summer. So it basically caught us out of hand, and since then we're really trying to catch up all the things we need to do so that we can correct everything that happened the past 1.5 years, more or less.
Yeah. Okay. How is the situation just now in Berlin?
I would say it's a bit strange. I mean, it's not very straightforward what we are allowed to do in terms of rent prices, rent increases. We had the situation with the law, which does not exist anymore, which basically means that we are allowed to increase the rents again. We can go back and ask for any rent differences that the tenant was not paying the last couple of months. But then there is a law which regulates the rents. It's called the Mietspiegel and the Mietpreisbremse. And the situation there is also not very clear. So it's not clear to us in what extent we can ask for new prices, we can increase the rents. It's not very clear what exactly we're allowed to do at the moment. And that is quite difficult for us because, I mean, anything we can say to a landlord or to a tenant may change in the next couple of weeks. And this creates a very unstable situation, so to speak.
Yeah.
We're not when we are not very sure on what we have to say, then it's quite unstable and not very secure for everybody.
So maybe just a quick one for all your listeners. This only affects the old apartments. So everything that has been built before. Which year was it? 2014.
2014.
Yes.
Was the case.
So for all the new builds, we have no rent ceiling, no Mietspiegel, nothing. So you can ask any rent you wish. So maybe just a few words to yourself, Yiannis. So you are managing about how many apartments at the moment?
So right now we have around about 700 units that we're managing.
Yeah.
Most of them belong to small landlords who have 1 or 2 apartments.
Yeah.
In Berlin, we don't have very big investors to our portfolio, and yeah, it looks really promising and really nice, I would say.
Yeah. What's this? Because we have maybe for you as a spectator today, listener, please, Lucy, can you show our rent maps? Because we have something for you. You can use our website. You can download the average rent. So if you want to buy a property, you want to rent a property, or you want to lease it, you can find it on our English website. So you can see it on our website on the download section. You have the purchase price map, and of course you have the rental maps. We have divided that into new builds and old builds. Here you can see the new builds, Maybe Lucy, if you check the new builds and check our station here near to our office, it's called Theodor-Heuss-Platz, which is the underground station. So you can see what rent we are getting here on new build. It's around 16 euros per square meter. This, of course, is the average rent. If it's a nice apartment, you get more than that. If it's not so nice, you get less than that. Also depends if it's a ground floor, if it's noisy or not. So that's something we have offered. It was a lot of work, and we've done that with our software called Pricemaps with an artificial intelligence, which is very handy to have. You also can check here the difference between a new build and an old build, the rent you can expect for every overgrown and underground station here in Berlin. We did the same for the city of Leipzig, which is a very interesting city to watch out for. It's about 1 hour, 40 minutes drive here from Berlin. In Saxony, here you have the prices for the existing apartments, which is 4 euros less, approximately 11 euros 60, approximately. So even more, 4 euros 50. There is a big difference between a new build and an old build, right? Yeah, so for new builds, we are pretty safe, right? This is all pretty straightforward.
I mean, the price is regulated by the market itself.
Yeah.
So it's all demand and supply.
Yes.
And that's why we have such a big difference between the existing prices of the existing leases and the new builds and the new rentals there. There is a lot of demand for apartments in Berlin. Supply not that much. And that pushes the prices to go higher and higher.
How do you see the rents on the new builds at the moment? Is it going up and up every year, or is it flattening out a little bit, or what do you?
I mean, there is a tendency of an increase every year, but we see that since last year, for example, the rate that the rents were increased is a bit slower than the previous years. They're still increasing, but not as quickly as before.
Why do you think they're not increasing as quickly as before?
That mainly has to do with what rate of rent the tenants are able to pay. I mean, the increase cannot go indefinite. If we have, let's say, 5-10% increase per year, that means that after 10 years we have double the rent prices. And we're still quite high at the moment. I mean, we are in a high rate at the moment. And if this continues like this, then the prices will skyrocket. I mean, it doesn't make much sense. There are times where the rates increase stronger and quicker, and other times that this slows down a bit. Inflation plays a role. We had last year Corona and all the lockdowns. I mean, there are too many things that can affect this kind of rates increases.
How do you see, because we have a lot of questions and we will come to your questions in the chat, don't worry, I'm seeing them already. But how do you see the advice we're giving at the moment regarding new builds and existing apartments, elderly apartments? When it comes to a landlord, he's asking the question, how can we rent them out? What do you advise?
What do you mean between old buildings and
yes, buildings? So when you have a vacant new build and a vacant old building, so what do you advise? Do you advise furnished, unfurnished? Or how do you work?
Okay, that depends also on many things. Basically, the first question we ask back in order to get as much information as possible is what is the plan with the property. If it's a purely investment, then we have to see what kind of apartment we're talking about. If it's a small one, maybe it makes sense to furnish it and rent it out for a specific period of time. If it's a larger one, then maybe furnishing it is not that a good idea, because then we have long vacancy periods. There are not too many people looking for a 4-room apartment, for example, 120 square meters, which is furnished for 1 year. That depends on the apartment mainly. The apartment, the area, and what the plan of the landlord is. We see a tendency right now where smaller units are mainly furnished first, and we're trying to rent them out for a specific period of time with a specific limited contracts, so that the landlord has the flexibility when he decides to sell the property again. Then, on the other hand, there are also other landlords who decide not to furnish. They don't want to bother with the investment of, investing on furniture and having to deal with vacancy periods or damages or things like that. And they decide to go with the normal German way of leases, the unlimited ones. It's a very dynamic situation. I cannot answer straightforward, do that or do the other.
Okay.
It depends on too many things.
So if you as a potential landlord have any questions, please feel free to contact Yiannis directly. You can find his contact details on our website, and he of course going to respond to your questions. If you have a particular property in mind which you want to buy, want to rent, or want to lease, then please contact him. He's going to give you a precise quote. I'll just jump to the first question.
Yeah.
How do you see the development in Berlin center, Mitte, Kreuzberg and Prenzlauer Berg in regards to the amount of offered objects for rent versus for sale after the rent decision by the Bundesverfassungsgericht? Do you understand the question? How do you see the development to the amount of offered objects? So first of all, we have more properties in the market. I think that's correct, Yiannis?
Yeah, half an hour after the Bundesverfassungsgericht put online their decision, there was a boom in most of the portals where you could find fresh properties that just sold up after the decision. There were a lot of landlords that they were holding their properties. They didn't want to rent them out and waited for the decision. And definitely there are a lot more right now that are offered.
Yes. Does it have an effect on the price? The price going down? Or?
The price, not really. I wouldn't say so. Because before we weren't allowed to rent them out to whatever price the market was dictating. There was the law which saying, you're not allowed to rent out the property for 10 euros or 12 euros per square meter, but you're only allowed to get 7, for example. I think the prices are basically on the market rate. What is someone can say it's a fair price. So there's quite a few offers and quite a lot of demand for these prices.
Okay, so we have the next question. How do you cope with people who do not pay their rent, even after 2 or 3 payment reminders?
Well, that's a quite straightforward answer. As long as the tenant has a rent arrears of more than 1 month's rent, 1 month's warm rent, then you, as a landlord, are allowed to start the eviction process.
How many months?
1 month.
1 month, warm rent? No, 2 months, wasn't it?
No, it's 1 month and €1.
Oh, okay.
So if let's say the tenant misses a month's payment, of course we send reminders and we try to claim the money as soon as possible. As soon as the second month is due and he doesn't make the payment, then you are allowed to start the eviction process immediately, which means that we cancel the contract. And normally the best way to do that is then hire a lawyer who can start the whole legal processes.
So how often does it happen? We have now how many apartments under management? 700?
So we'll talk about 700 units. The past 4 years we needed to do that, I think 3 times. That was it. And apart from one case which eventually ended up in the court, the rest, the tenant at some point after a couple of months, he got in contact with us and we make an arrangement to get back the apartment and set up installments payment for the next couple of months so that he can pay what he owed.
Okay.
I mean, if the tenant doesn't pay his rent, there is nothing much he can do to win that.
Yes. I mean, so it's I think less than 1% chance that the tenant is not paying the rent or failing to pay the rent. Of course, we have the regulations in place, and of course, regulations are important for you to be aware of. Again, just get professional advice. How much do we charge landlords when we manage properties for them?
For the normal leases, the unlimited ones, that is 35 euros per month plus the VAT. And for the furnished apartments, where we have a lot more work to do, a lot more tenant changes and all these things, then that is the 15% of the arranged rent per month.
Okay, so we have another question. Are you more likely to get long-term tenants in the outskirts of Zehlendorf than Mitte, full of singles and expats? Or is there a little pattern of difference based on city zone and length of tenancy?
I mean, okay, you came up with Zehlendorf. Zehlendorf, for example, is a very nice area to live for families. You can find really nice houses with gardens and everything. And of course, someone who is willing to move into this area and pay also the premium for that and have a big house, he doesn't want to move out a year later or so. So we're looking a lot more open-end contracts in these areas. On the other hand, in Berlin Mitte, in the city center, you find a lot more expats, a lot more younger people, young professionals. They're willing to pay also another premium so that they can be closer to their work. And there is a tendency there that they will change an apartment or they will move to another apartment every 2 to 3 years, mainly. So, yeah, I would say there is some kind of difference in the pattern there.
Yeah. Please feel free to contact us. Advice is free. You don't have to sign any contracts with us if you don't want to. And we give you the free advice. And we also have a software on our website. Plus, maybe you can quickly show on our English website the valuation tool, which you can also use if you want to understand if the property can be rented out and what would be the market price to rent it out. So you just go to the website, property valuation, you fill out the boxes. You just need to know the surface of your apartment, and then you can check how much it is if you want to rent it out. And it's the same software we have used for price and purchase maps, so rental and purchase maps. And it's very transparent. It gives you the average rent in for every address here in Germany. I'm actively looking for investment properties in the area of Berlin, and I'm very curious about the realistic rental trends to be expected for the next year, especially due to the big difference in buying and rental prices, where new buildings tend to promise very high rents, while old tenants protected properties have extremely low rents. So I just don't really understand the question in detail. I hope I'll respond now to this partly with Yiannis. So I will give you the first shot on that question.
Okay, it's not very clear. The question, I will try to, from what I understood. So, a new build is at least of now, on what the situation in Berlin is a quite solid investment. From my point of view, at least, the rent return a landlord can get from that can be quite high. I mean, promising very high rents, that's questionable. I cannot answer that directly. But the prices, you can see them also in our maps, at least the mean price on that. And then you can calculate how much return you can get from there. Now, the old buildings where there are existing tenancies, of course, these are protected by the laws, but at least there you know exactly how much money you will be generating for the next years. So you can do the exact calculations and be able to find out whether your investment or potential investment is worth it. I hope that I answered that. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, we have properties, for instance, in projects. We are also marketing as agents, of course, that we promise something between 35 to 40 euros a square meter if it's a micro apartment in the city center next to the Chinese embassy, for instance. There's a nice project called Ambassador. I think that's pretty realistic, but you can't take that in as an average rent in that area, of course, because if it's a 60 square meter apartment, and again, your question is between what are the gaps and the differences? There are huge differences in Berlin. So it's a very intransparent market. So you need precise questions and precise answers on that one. So if you're not sure what you're going to buy and how the rental market will be, please feel free to contact us. To be expected for the next year, of course, we don't see rents going up through the roof. I think Yiannis already responded to that, because the purchase power of tenants is not unlimited. It should be realistic. What might be important for you as an investor is to look on the overall amount the tenant has to pay every month. So if it's this micro apartment, we have magic gaps, which is 500 euros a month, 1,000 euros a month, 2,000, 1,500 euros. If it's a bigger apartment a month. So you should be realistic. Of course, we also have luxury properties we are renting out, where people pay 2, 3, 4, 5,000 euros rent a month. Again, depends on the area, the district, the condition, the layout, etc. So that's something, it's a really case-by-case situation. Again, realistic rents you really get, if you fill out our form online, you get the realistic rents, and we don't divide there between new and old builds, because that's the market rent. And the tenant don't really care if it's a new and old build. It's just what is important at the regulations we have on the rental system here. And that's something we have to make sure you're aware of before you buy a property. Usually elderly apartments, which are not in a great condition, are much cheaper than new builds. So you get discounts there, but not all of them. For instance, if you go Kudam, or if you go in Mitte, beautiful listed buildings built in the 1900s, they're even more expensive than the new builds with high ceilings and all these things. One of them for buying and also for renting out. So you really have to check again in detail. Yeah, I mean, what might be important for you if you have sitting tenants, you also raised the question about while there are sitting old tenants, that might be a big one. Yes, these apartments are much lower in the asking price than if the apartment would be vacant or with a new tenant, because you can't really claim self-usage. So the buyer has to accept the tenant until he wishes to leave. Free. So the tenant can decide anytime if he wants to leave or not, and you can't kick out the tenant, which I have to say actually is pretty good in Germany. So we don't have this very harsh capitalism here in Germany. The tenants are protected. Sometimes we feel they are overprotected, which means they don't really are motivated actually to buy their own apartment, which again you can see now where we have such a big scarcity that this actually is negative for the people. But in general, we have to say it's good that the tenants are protected and we don't have these crazy rents going up all the time. So that's also the way the German social economy works here. Yeah, I think we have no further questions, Lucy. I think I'll be fine. Thank you for watching tonight. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact. Oh, there's someone just popping up now. Is it legal to offer a sum of money for a 10-year notice period to protect a tenant to leave the apartment if the tenant is fine with it? Of course. Whatever you do under the civil right here in Germany, you can come to an arrangement with the tenant. There are many tenants who are actually happy to leave if you pay the money. Of course, it's important to know which figure. Again, this is something, please feel free to contact us. We can give you rough ballpark figures, what is realistic, what's not. Usually we sign contracts with the tenants so that the tenant says, okay, I'm leaving that apartment within 6 months, so a certain period of time, and then you pay the tenant 50% of the sum you agreed on the day he's signing the cancellation of his tenancy agreement, and on the other 50 on the day he has left the apartment and handed over the keys to you. That's something you can negotiate with the tenant as a landlord or as a seller, and of course as a buyer. And that's something a good agent will advise you what's realistic, what's not realistic. But of course it depends also on the kind of apartment, where is it, and more important, what kind of tenant you have in there. If it's an elderly lady, if it's someone who's very young with a family, and maybe it's a small apartment, they're maybe considering to leave anyway. So you need to really negotiate with them. And we have sometimes in the same building, we pay some tenants something like 5,000 euros, 3,000 euros. In the same apartment with a different tenant, you might end up with 15,000 to 20,000 euros as a lump sum for them to leave. And some simply don't want to have the money because they don't find a different apartment and they don't really want to leave. So again, that's something you can figure out with the tenant. And most of the time you can figure that out before you buy, before you want to sell. That's a very important task of the agent for you as well, to negotiate that on your behalf. We also work, of course, with lawyers. We have standard contracts for that secure both parties. So that's something we can help you in detail. So thank you for watching tonight, our 22nd Berlin real estate talk. Thank you, Thomas, for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Yiannis, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I hope we responded to most of your questions. If there's a question you might have now, later on, please feel free to contact us on our website. And we're here to respond to your questions. And if you have any ideas, topics you want us to cover in one of our next sessions, please feel free to give us a suggestion and we will try to cover these topics for you.